Personal log, celestial date 218.237.12. I'm in the cantina with my friend Rowena and her friend Dagger, who I just pulled out of the vault in the planet Carrion. And we've been talking a little bit, and Rowena's gotten a little quiet, and she keeps looking at me, and I know she's thinking about the past. Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is Starforged Alpha Cluster. What we're going to do now is begin a session. I haven't really done this yet because there hasn't really been a need to. I don't think we're going to do this every session. It's kind of like in the middle of chapter. It's kind of from chapter to chapter, and I feel like we've ended one chapter where we've completed a vow, and it's time to start a new chapter. We ended with a little bit of a cliffhanger, and I think that what we want to do is have a bit of a flashback in the relationship between Krista and Rowena, and see why it is that we could not get the bond with her. We got a weak hit in the previous session, and that means she's going to ask something of us before we can count this as a bond. So we've set the scene. We're in the cantina talking, and Mina's kind of looking back and forth between Rowena and Krista. She knows something's wrong, right? And she doesn't know what. And they're going to have to tell her the story of what's going on. So Rowena is going to basically say to Krista, Krista's going to say, you owe me one. I got your friend Dagger out of the vault down there. And Rowena is going to say, no, you already owed me more than one. So we're not even yet. And Krista just looks at her and maybe blushes a little bit. And Mina says, what? What do you mean? What does she owe you? And so we're going to do a flashback. But first we want to recap the session. Those are the two steps. So our recap is that Krista had landed on the surface. She pulled out her multi-scanner to try and scan for life, and she wasn't able to find any life because it broke. It was damaged by the corrosion and malfunctioned, so she's going to have to repair it. She then went through the hangar and she found the stun gun that had been dropped by Dagger, so she knew she was on the right trail. And in reaching for the gun, she ended up putting her hand through what looked like the wall, and it ended up being a hologram that was protecting the archway that led deeper into the vault. Once she went further in, she eventually found a control room and she explored it looking for information. And what she found was one of the sort of belt pouches from the environmental suit that Dagger had fallen to the ground, and so she knew which exit from the control room to take. She followed that corridor and found a multi-scanner, not quite as nice as the multi-scanner that Krista has, but still a data pad with a sensor array in it. And it had a recording of Dagger, so she knew she was on the right trail. And it also had the combination to the door that was at the end of this hallway, which she pressed into the buttons, and the door lifted up, and she ended up in a burial chamber of all of these alien creatures in pods. And she began to get the feeling that the pods were meant for her too, and there were some empty ones, and she was going to be put in one of them. And she got scared and sort of ran down looking for Dagger, and she found Dagger hiding at the bottom of this whole giant cylindrical room, level after level after level of these pods, most of which are full. And Dagger is convinced that she was going to be stuck in one of these pods too. And Dagger is convinced that this entire vault's purpose was to lure people with the beacon safely through the atmosphere to get them here to trap them. So Krista grabbed her and pulled her out, and the two of them ran back up, and they got into the ship, and they flew back to Relic Station, and she was able to return Dagger to Zephyr, and we got a strong hit on the Iron Vow, fulfilling it. But I marked 2 ticks instead of 1. It was only supposed to be 1 tick because it's a troublesome quest. We got out of a dangerous delve, right? And then Zephyr thanked Krista. We tried to forge a bond, and this is where we got the weak hit. So Chris is we will get the bond. We don't have to roll this again. We have succeeded and gotten the hit. But in order to get the tick here for the bond, we have to do something for Zephyr. So what I want to do is come up with a flashback that reveals what it is that Krista owes to Rowena, aka Zephyr. What does she owe her? What happened in their past? And so I think we need the oracles for that. I think we're going to roll action and theme and see what we get. So depart burden. Depart burden. So let me have a think about that. All right, so I think before Krista left, she was a student, an archaeology student, along with Zephyr, right? So the two of them were archaeology students on Meridian, in the Meridian, was it Meridian, right? Settlement? I think that's the name of it. Yeah. So they were in Meridian at like Meridian Institute of Archaeology. And they were both learning the academic side of archaeology, right? How to analyze artifacts and look them up and scan them and all the stuff that Zephyr was doing when Krista walked in the door in the first episode, right? Putting it on a holographic analyzer, projecting it up in 3D, spinning it around, looking at it, and so forth. That's what they were training to do. And so they were in school together. They were working together. They were like lab partners, they were had projects together and stuff, right? And they were in the middle of a big giant project that like their whole grade was based on. And Krista left. She this Pyro came. He told them all these stories of relic hunting. She decided all this academic stuff is boring. I want to follow him. And she got on board the ship and she left. And she abandoned the project, class, all of it. And she left Zephyr by herself. And so Zephyr wanted to pass. So she had to do all the work herself so that she could get a good grade. Right? All of the project, all of the analysis, all of the data mining, all of the writing of the project, everything was left for her because Krista just took off and left her. She didn't warn her. She didn't tell her where she was going. She just got on the ship and left. And so at first, Rowena was looking for her. She couldn't find her. There was no communication, right? So Rowena's still a little miffed about this, even though it's been a long time, right? And she's now long since graduated. She's like, you still did that to me. You abandoned me. You left me with the burden of the entire project, and you were only thinking of yourself. So don't think that just because you got Dagger makes me think that you are thinking of others. You're still thinking of yourself. You went down there to look for artifacts, didn't you? And you just found Dagger because she happened to be there. And Krista says, no, 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 I went to help your friend. I came to a control room that had all kinds of cool computer things, alien computer machines and other devices that could have told me more about the vault. And I didn't stop there. When I saw that pouch that fell off of Dagger's environmental suit, I went straight after her. I did not stop. And Zephyr says, oh, and when you got to that burial chamber with all the pods, did you just run through there too? And Krista says, I did. And she said, oh, you did? Or did you stop and try to explore it and find some artifacts? And Krista says, well, I was going to look for artifacts, but I got a really uneasy feeling and I decided to get out of there. And so Zephyr says, well, she says, if you really want to make up for it, I've got a project I'm working on now that you could help me finish. And then we'll be even for the project that you stopped me, you you abandoned me. Hang on a sec. Sorry, I had a bit of a cough there. She says, if you help me with the current project I'm on, we'll be even for the project that you left me holding the bag on. How about that? And Krista sighs, and she says, all right, what's your current project? So now we got to figure out what's the current project. And let me think about that. So we could do a goal, or we could do descriptor focus and see what that gives us. Let's try descriptor and focus and see if that gives us anything. If not, maybe I'll roll up a goal. My hesitance about the goal is a lot of goals are not going to be relevant to this. Like, well, some of the forging an alliance, fighting injustice, spreading the faith. I'm not sure any of that would make sense for the context here. So let's try descriptor and focus and see if we can find something that will fill out the context. And we get fiery outpost. Okay, Well, I mean, let's take a look at the sector map, right? There's a fiery planet here called Cinder, and there's an outpost on it called Deadrock. And if we look at Deadrock, it's a mining and entertainment project being preyed upon by raiders. It's built within a repurposed ship, so it's in a chunk of the Kronos ship. And it's not big. It's only 50 or 60 people, right? Dozens. And it's being preyed upon by raiders. So I think this has got something to do with Deadrock and Cinder. Deadrock is on the planet Cinder. So I think there's some sort of a project going on that is related here to the job of Zephyr as an archaeologist. Before we get to that, though, while I'm thinking of it, I do want to point out. So I've got a couple other things done here, and one is the Exodus ships. I've decided, since we've got the Ophion, right, and now Kronos, and I'm going to add that here. The Kronos, so that it was this ship's occupants settled Kronos Tide, and part of it is in Deadrock. Okay. So what I decided is all of the Exodus ships are going to be named after Titans. And so they're basically Titan-class ships. The Titan was the first one built. And the language, each one has its own language. This would be Chronoan. So the people here might, in addition to Forge Common, some of them might know Chronoan. Each ship had its own language. And the reason that that's important, of course, is that the Christosar ship, the Stormswept, her mentor labeled all of the controls in a variety of languages that were the ship languages, the dialects spoken by the people on the individual Titan ships. And so he did that so that the ship wouldn't be able to be hijacked, because nobody could read all of those languages except him, right? So being preyed upon by raiders. So here's what I think happened. While mining, these guys found some kind of an artifact. And before they could, and they were supposed to, here's what happened. They found an artifact. They communicated with Relic Station and told them, we found this really valuable artifact down in a mine on Cinder, right? And we need it to be analyzed. And Rowena was all excited because she's a xenoarchaeologist and this is some cool relic, right? That's where Relic Station is here to examine these things. So they pulled it up. They told her about it. Maybe they sent her a picture of it over the weave, right? The communications. And then they put it on a ship to send along the drift passage to Relic. And while on board the ship, somewhere in the middle of the drift, they stopped at a waypoint or whatever, and they got hit by pirates. They got hit by raiders, and the raiders stole it. And so what Zephyr tells her is, if you can get that back for me, you've got a ship, you think of yourself as an adventurer, if you can get that back for me, we're cool, we're even. And I'll consider the score settled. So Krista says, my ship isn't a warship. Do you know, do you know how many of these raiders there are? Do you know where they are? And Zephyr says, well, they're in the sector because they hit us occasionally. And at one point we found a raider ship that had been abandoned and completely wiped out by the gamma ray bursts of that creature, which, by the way, I've been able to make it as a creature, and I've chosen, let me see if I can show you the picture. This is a picture of the quote-unquote manta ray flying creature from the game Satisfactory. And it doesn't really have much of a head or identifiable facial features, and it has huge wings. And that is what we defined as the first look at this creature. And because it looks like a manta ray, I've decided to call it a gamma ray. Yeah, it's a bit of a pun. So she says the gamma ray sent out a burst that disabled one of the Raider ships. They've got it docked in one of the docks here on the station, so you could maybe examine that. I don't think it's been repaired yet. So we know the Raiders are somewhere in this sector, and they keep hitting Dead Rock in particular because of the mining, right? Whenever they bring up valuable minerals and try to ship them out, the Raiders will try to attack it. And oftentimes they succeed, and they got this relic. So if you can get the relic back for me, we'll be even. And so Krista says, okay. She reaches down and pulls out the chain and the little piece of the Ophion and holds it in her hand. And Zephyr kind of raises an eyebrow. And Krista says, I swear on this piece of the Titan ship Ophion that I will bring this artifact back for you. So we've got another iron vow. And I think that this vow is probably going to be dangerous. So let's add a new vow. And we're going to be return the artifact stolen by the Raiders. Right? We don't know what the artifact is yet. This is a dangerous vow. And I don't think there's any need to make it a clock, because I don't think the Raiders are going to do anything with this artifact. I mean, they might sell it, but I don't think we have any need to set clocks yet. And I think that's a mechanism I'm going to worry about at another time. So let me set this up, and I'll bring you back when it's all set up. All right, so I think we've got this set up. Return the artifact stolen by the Raiders. We're going to have to locate where the Raiders are, sneak in. We're not good at shadow, so that's going to be trouble potentially. Find it, get out with it, and get it back to Zephyr. So that's what the Iron Vow is doing for us. Let me check one thing. So I'll pause again. All right, so the way this works is if you do what they ask, right? They ask something more to gain the bond, envision the request, and do it. Which means you can, and not just swear an iron vow, but actually do it. So she's going to have to go and do it. Now, the other thing I want to do is see if we can forge a connection with, oops, no, I did not mean to hit that. So let's delete that. Forge a connection with Dagger, right? So, I guess they finish their drinks. Rowena says, well, listen, I do want the artifact back, but don't get yourself killed, okay? Jackpot. And Krista says, don't worry, I know how to take care of myself. And Rowena says, yeah, you certainly do. And she gets up and leaves. And then Mina / Dagger says to Krista, wow, I didn't realize you guys had known each other that long. And Krista says, yeah, we've known each other a long time, and we've been friends, but there's always been this between us that I abandoned her. And to me, it was just a school project, and I wasn't interested in school anymore. But Rowena always liked getting A's, and responsibility was really important to her. And I'm not sure I would do it again. But at the time, I was young and foolish, and I just wanted to go on adventures. And Dagger sort of nods, and she says, well, you know, Zephyr is very, she's very much a lab person and not a field person. I think I'm more like you, and I prefer to be in the field. So now what we're going to do is make a connection, right? I feel like this could forge a new relationship for us. So let's try to make a connection with Dagger. And we don't have any bonuses, I don't think. So we're just rolling heart. We did save her life, so, you know, you'd think. And we get a strong hit. So we give them a roll and a rank. So let's add the connection of, and I think she's also troublesome, and this is going to be Mina Dagger, and her last name I rolled up is Savarin. And let's go ahead and add this text to our connection box here. I'm not sure why this didn't work, but let's go ahead and drag it in. Maybe it'll show up when we look at it again. Yeah. So she's got the old multi-scanner and stuff. Let's reveal an aspect of her since we now know her a little bit. So what do we now know about her? Characters, revealed aspects. And we get weary. Okay. So, all right, that makes sense. She says, so Dagger says, well, look, I want to thank you a lot. Just more than I can say with words for saving my life down there. I think I would have just hidden under there until I eventually ran out of oxygen and suffocated. I didn't have any way to get off the planet. They dropped me here with a shuttle and told me they would pick me up, and they never came back, and I couldn't communicate with them, and my communicator went out, and then I dropped my data pad, and I had all kinds of trouble in there. So thanks for saving my life. And Krista says, well, you're welcome. And listen, if you ever want any help exploring anything, let me know, because I'd be happy to go back down with you, for instance. And Dagger says, I don't know if I want to go down there anytime soon. So now Chris is going to have to figure out how to find these pirates. So she could ask the people in Dead Rock, but I think the first thing she's going to do, because we know there's a pirate ship docked in Relic Station, I think the first thing she's going to do is go to the administrator of Relic Station and ask him, and this is Administrator Blackstone, who we know is corrupt, so he might be working with the pirates or something. Don't know. But she's going to go to Administrator Blackstone, and she's going to ask if she can get a look at this raider ship. And in fact, she might even be able to try and take it. I'm picturing it as like a smaller vessel, like a 2 or 3 person, almost like the size of, if you remember the old Battlestar Galactica, the Cylon fighters that held 3 Cylons. Not huge. It doesn't have all the type of compartments that Krista's ship has, the Stormswept. It's just like the size of, say, a stealth bomber, right? It's big enough to hold several crew and hold cargo when they raid, but it's really just a small ship. It's not like her ship is kind of the size of maybe a corvette or a frigate. This thing is more like just a big bomber type size. So she's going to go and ask about that. So Krista heads out of the cantina, and she kind of goes around Relic looking for the administrative offices, and she finds the administrative offices, and it's the 12th or 13th hour of the day, so they're there, and the door opens up. It's A1, right? And the door slides open. They're sort of repaired enough of the station now that everything's working again. And she goes inside, and there's a receptionist, and she says to the receptionist, hello, my name is Krista Sutton. I'm the one who just rescued Dagger from the surface of the of Carrion, and the administrative assistant says, oh, well, that's excellent. We heard about that. We're really pleased that you were able to do that and rescue one of our citizens. And Krista said, well, listen, I have some questions for the administrator, and I was wondering if he has some time to see me, Administrator Blackstone. And so does he have time? I think this is a compel move, right? She's trying to persuade her. So she says, is there any way you could send me in to see him? And what does the administrative assistant say? Let's roll our move. This is bartering, encouraging, right? She's not threatening. So we're rolling heart. And we get a strong hit. Wait, no. We get a weak hit. We can burn momentum on a strong hit to get a strong hit. Your game comes with a demand or a complication. Yeah, I think we're going to go ahead with the weak hit. That's fine. So let's roll action and theme. Shall we roll action and theme, or is there something else we can do? Complication. Yeah, I think this is all too like high stress. Let's just roll action and theme and see what the complication is. Arrive balance. So let me think about that. I think what the administrative assistant says is, well, right, she needs, we're thinking about balance as bank account balance. She says, I'll let you see him for a few credits. And she names a price, doesn't matter. I think we're going to just reduce the supply by one, right? That Krista's got to pay her some cash under the table to be allowed in right now to see Administrator Blackstone. So now we have to figure out what the first look of this character is, right? We don't know what his goal is yet. We do know that he's corrupt. But let's go ahead and roll first look, right? And we're going to roll twice. So the door slides open to the inner room, and she sees a very nicely appointed room that faces the outer ring, and you can see Carrion and the star of Kappa Kronos behind it, and it's a quite nice scene, nicest room, and he looks threatened. So he looks nervous, I guess, and plain. So this is sort of an average-looking man, mid 40s, relatively nondescript. You wouldn't be able to pick him out of a crowd, and he has this haunted look, like he's in the middle of an emergency almost. And he looks up and he says, "What is this? I asked not to be disturbed." And the administrative assistant says, "Sir, this woman has something very important to discuss with you. She's the person who brought Dagger back from the surface of the planet, and she needed to see you. And I thought it would be," and she kind of quietly puts the credits in her pocket, and she says, "I thought it would be really important for you to see her. I know you said not to be interrupted, but I think you probably need to see her." And then she backs out, and the door slides shut. And Blackstone says, "Well, so much for giving orders." And he, of course, being a corrupt person, I guess probably isn't surprised that his administrative assistant is also corruptible. So he says to Krista, "Okay, have a seat." And she sits down in the kind of what do you want to call it? The sort of those futuristic chairs that are like they don't have any edges or legs to them. They just sort of almost look like a hollowed out eggshell. And she sits down, and the administrator's across the desk, and you can hear like the ventilation system kick back in, because finally even that is back up and running on Relic Station. And he says, "We're still picking up the pieces from that awful gamma ray that hit us with that gamma burst." And Krista says, "Yeah, I know. My ship was almost hit with that as well. I had to bypass a lot of circuitry to keep it moving." So now what we have to do is think about, so what's she going to do? So she says, "Listen, I know you've been having some trouble with raiders." And Blackstone's eyes kind of widen. She says, "You're one of your researchers, Dr. Malik?" And he says, "Yeah, I know Dr. Malik. You mean Zephyr?" And she says, "Yeah, well, Dr. Malik told me that there was a valuable artifact discovered on Dead Rock Station, and it was being brought here, and the raiders took it. And I was just wondering if you know any more about it." So the first thing she's going to do is gather information. Okay? So I don't think her assets help her here. She's scavenging a wreck or a ruin. No. And Lore Hunter is swearing an iron vow to recover valuable knowledge. Oh, we didn't actually run the swear a vow. So let's retcon this a little bit. We can re-roll any dice. And we reach a milestone in pursuit of this quest, we will take +2 momentum. So let's actually roll to swear the iron vow, because we didn't actually do that. We're rolling heart, but remember we can re-roll any dice. So what do we get with this? We get a weak hit. Oh, we can burn momentum to a weak hit, but we can re-roll any dice. So we've got a 5. Let's re-roll the 7 and the 9. So to roll them one at a time, you've got to roll. Well, let's roll both. I mean, I should be able to read them both. And we get a 5 and a 3. Right, so that gives us a weak hit. So there's no need to burn momentum on this. So she got a weak hit on the iron vow. So we take +1 momentum, so we're at 10 now. And envision what we do. We have more questions than answers, and I think that's perfect, right? We don't know where the raiders are and all of this. So, okay. So let me just make a note here in the vows, and I'll be right back. All right, I just made a note here to check our Lore Hunter asset when we reach milestones and fulfill the vow. So she says, so she tells him what she's interested in. She said, I would like to recover this artifact. And he says, you're going to go up against the raiders? And she says, yeah, but I want to know what you know about them before I go after them. And he says, young lady, you can't possibly expect to defeat these raiders by yourself. And she said, well, I'm not necessarily trying to defeat them. I just want to recover the artifact. So now the question is, well, let's see. I think if we get some misses, maybe the corruption is he's working with the raiders. If we don't get misses, then maybe he's corrupted another way. So let's gather information. Does he know anything? So we're rolling wits, and she's asking him, what do you know about this? Right? And I think that's correct. When you conduct an investigation, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. So we get a strong hit. So we discover something, and we get +2 momentum. So we discover something specific and helpful. And let's roll story clue and see what this is. And the story clue involves a non-human being or creature. Well, I mean, I think this makes sense. I think he says, well, we have actually one of the pirate raider ships, one of their stingers, they call them. It's a three-man crew, and he says it's actually in the docking. It's in the docking bay. It's one of the docking clamps along the outer ring. And we were actually going to look into it because we built ships here of about that size, and we were going to see if we could strip it for technology. But it might have. It was It was just like completely fried by the gamma rays radiation burst. Right, that involves a non-human being or creature. But you might be able to get some clues from it if you go on board there. And so she says, so will you allow me to check it? And furthermore, if I can find a way to get it repaired or to repair it myself, maybe I could take it and they'll think I'm one of them. Now that's a compel, right? It's one thing for him to say, well, you can go on board and look around. It's another thing for him to say, yeah, you can take it with you. So let's see what happens. She says, what I would like to do is repair it if I can, and if I can repair it, take it with me, and instead of using my ship, so that they think that I'm one of the raiders, and they'll let me maybe through their picket line or whatever it is if we can figure out where they are. And I think that's a compel move. And I guess she's using iron. She's trying to encourage him. And we get a miss. He's going to refuse, or we can burn momentum to get a strong hit. Do I want to burn momentum? Do I want her to get the pirate ship? I don't even know if she's going to be able to repair it. So I think not. I think he says, no, you can't have it. And now, if we look at pay the price, trusted individual works against you as a possibility. So let me look through the options here and see what we got. Okay, so I think he says, look, we can't let it out of the bay. It's evidence. It's been confiscated. But what he's really thinking is, right, this was a miss. I think he's actually working for the pirates, right, or the raiders. Like he's secretly funneling information to them. They were able to capture this thing because of the fact that he was telling them the timelines and stuff. So he's actually going to act against her. Not immediately, right? He's going to let her get on the ship, and then he's going to maybe send somebody to knock her over the head or something like that. He's going to act against her now. Um, and so so he says, look, you can go on board the ship and see what you can download from their records, if anything. But that's all you get. And the reason he's agreed to this is he's pretty sure that it's so fried that she's not going to get any info out of it. He's also pretty sure that she's going to go missing when she gets on the ship. So she walks out of here, and you can picture this, right? She walks out, the doors close, and he turns around and presses a button, and some sort of an intimidating looking ruffian answers, and he says, "We have a problem." And the guy kind of looks, angrily into the screen, like menacingly into the screen, and then we fade to black, right? So now we're with Krista, and she is going to head the to the pirate raider. So she goes back around, another quarter of the way around to the docking area, and she finds the dock number, and there's a security officer standing there, and she says the Administrator Blackstone said I could go on board and examine this raider ship. And he says, "Yeah, we just got the info. You're Jackpot, right?" And she says, "Yeah." And he says, "Okay, you can go in." What he's also been told is let her in and then go away, because then the mercenary guy is going to come in and try to get her, right? So fortunately, Krista has no idea this is going to happen. So she goes inside and she's going to examine this thing, and I think she's going to make a repair check to see if she can repair it enough. So let's first see if she can figure out. Let's first see if she can understand the layout of this ship, right? So the first thing she's going to do is secure an advantage, right? She's going to look over the controls, the computer, and everything in the ship. So she enters the back of the ship, and like the airlock gets through the back of the ship. She walks up inside the cockpit. There are 3 chairs, 2 in the front for the pilot and the co-pilot, and 1 in the back. She sits down at the back with its console. That's where like the commander or the navigator the navigator would be. And she tries to punch up the stuff. And before she does anything, though, she looks over the controls to see if she understands it relative to what she knows about flying her own ship and the other ships that she's flown before. And so we're going to secure an advantage and see. And this is using wits, right? Because she's just trying to figure out using her own experience. And we get a strong hit. So we can add +1 on our next move. And so she does understand this. And now what she's going to do is see if she can repair the console enough to allow her to gather information. So where's repair? I just saw it. Why am I not finding it now? Repair. Okay. So she's going to try to repair this thing, and we get +1. Whoops. So we get +1 because she just secured an advantage. And let's see if she's able to repair it enough to bring up the console and start looking at the data. And of course, while she's doing this, a bad guy is coming in to try to sneak up on her. So we can burn momentum for a strong hit, but we get a weak hit. So we gain repair points. Okay, so she's not fixing something that's got any points on it, but she repairs the console enough with a weak hit, I think, that she can bring it up and read the data. However, While she's doing that, a bad guy, a merc with like some sort of a billy club is coming in, and he's going to try to hit her over the head and knock her out. Right, so he's sneaking in, and she's gonna have. We're going to see does she figure it out. I think we're facing danger here. Right, we're not. Are we entering the fray? I think we're entering the fray. Right, I think he's going to come in and try to attack her and ambush her. Right, so we're entering the fray. And this is going to be our last move of the session, and then we'll begin the battle in the next session. So when you're forced into a fight, so he's going to come in and try to ambush her, right? So she's caught in a trap plus wits. So that's actually pretty good for her. And we do have a lot of momentum. And we get a strong hit with a match, roll all fives. So she's in control of the battle. And so Krista's typing up, and what she does is, just by luck, as she flicks on and the computer starts up, the cockpit camera comes on, and it's showing the back. And she sees in the view screen this guy in like kind of like sort of a space Kevlar armor, right, with a nightstick creeping up behind her, and she's like, "Oh man!" And she waits until the last second, and then she rolls out of the way, and his billy club comes down and hits the console and just bounces off of it, and she is in control. And in the next episode, we'll find out how she does. So that is the end of this episode, and we end on a little bit of a cliffhanger. This went in a direction I totally didn't expect, but it's pretty cool. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I certainly have. Until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been Starforged Alpha Cluster.